actually going to happen. Okay, in other news, there's a massive piece of breaking news that I don't know how Robert Mueller spins this away with regard to his investigation. I mean, this is truly an incredible piece of news. So there's a series of text messages that were exchanged between top FBI employees referring to presidential candidate Donald Trump as an idiot and a douche, while fearing his potential victory is terrifying. Okay, this was from Peter Shrzok, the guy who was removed in, I believe it was August of this year, from the Russian counterintelligence investigation by the FBI because of his bias. He was also involved in initiating the Russian counterintelligence investigation. And him calling Trump an idiot or a douche, I don't think any of that makes a difference as far as whether he can do his job or not. I think a lot of people have called the president those names, including his own Secretary of State. But I don't think that one of these messages is capable of explanation. And I think that it's going to be very difficult to explain away why Shrzok was involved in this investigation to begin with, why he was allowed to initiate this investigation to begin with, if this stuff was true. So on March 16, 2016, he texted his paramour, Linda Page, and she texted him, "I cannot believe Donald Trump is likely to be an actual serious candidate for president." And he wrote back, "God, Trump is a loathsome human, yet he may win." And then, this is the big one, August 15, 2016, Shrzok tells his girlfriend Page, quote, "I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office," that'd be Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, who has significant connections to Democrats, "that there's no way he gets elected, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40. Okay, what that sounds very much like is that Shrzok and his girlfriend, his mistress, that basically they were initiating investigations into Trump as an insurance policy in case Trump would win. That is shocking stuff. Okay, that's much more of a smoking gun than anything I've seen in the Trump investigation to target President Trump. According to CNN, as the former number 2 official in counterintelligence, Shrzok helped lead the FBI's investigation of Hillary Clinton's private email server and was involved in opening the investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Page was also briefly on Mueller's team before returning to the FBI, but she completed her detail before the special counsel's office was made aware of the texts. So in other words, 2 of the people who were involved in key ways in both the Hillary investigation and the Trump investigation were not only biased against Trump, they were openly talking about setting up an insurance policy with the FBI deputy director in case Trump were to be elected. I mean, that is shocking, shocking stuff. That's the sort of stuff that kills an investigation. And, yesterday I was sort of mocking the idea of a special investigation of the special investigation, not mocking it anymore. Okay, based on that text, it seems to me that there should be some sort of real investigation that goes on into exactly how the special investigation is conducting its business. All of this could be setting up Trump to fire the members of Mueller's team or to fire Mueller himself. On the basis of this, I can't say that would be completely illegitimate. I think it would be a bad political move. I think it would be unwise for the president to do that, but it would not be completely illegitimate. This does not look like a team that was designed to get to the bottom of things. It looks like a team that was designed to dig and dig and dig until they find something that they can use politically against the president of the United States, or at least that's what some people on the team were looking for. Now, Mueller got rid of Shrzok when he found out about these texts, but the damage is already done. In evidence, there's something called, in legal evidence, there's something called fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine. The idea is that if I don't have a warrant to search inside your house, and I just break into your house, I'm a cop, I break into your house and I find a murder weapon, that murder weapon is not admissible in court because it's quote-unquote fruit of the poisonous tree. I broke the law in order to go into your house, and now I can't admit that evidence in court, even though it would help convict you. Okay? This is very similar. Even if this investigation were to come up with something, it's difficult to tell whether we came up with it through bias or whether it was come up with through actual investigation. And right now, I haven't seen any evidence at all that's been presented that Trump was involved in Russia collusion. Apparently, the period that's being focused on now in the investigation is the period after Trump was elected, which doesn't sound like election collusion with the Russians to me. So this investigation is spiraling out of control. Exactly what Republicans should expect in 2018. I think that's a little bit an overreach, but this is an off-year election. In an off-year election since World War II, the party in power loses on average 25 seats. Republicans currently have a 23-seat majority. Okay, in 2006, 2010, 2014, the last 3 midterm elections, the swings have been incredibly large. At this moment, the generic ballot shows Democrats with a 10.3% lead in the Real Clear Politics average. At this time in 2009, Republicans led the generic ballot by 3 to 4%, and they ended up blowing that out to a 7% advantage in the 2010 elections, and they ended up picking up 60 seats. In the 2006 cycle, Democrats led by 9 to 10 points with a year to go. They ended up flipping the House too. None of this bodes well for Republicans in the House of Representatives. Now, there are a couple factors that are militating against Democrats having a blowout year. One is, as I say, the bad cycle for Senate elections. The chances that the Democrats win the Senate, even in this environment, are relatively low. I would say probably 20 to 30%. I would have said before about 2%. Now I think it's about 20 to 30%. If you look at, but I'm ballparking it, if you look at the House elections, there are 23 seats right now that are Republican seats in Clinton districts. The chances are that a lot of those swing away from the Republicans, but Democrats also have 12 seats in Republican districts, so it's very possible that those swing away from Democrats. It's not clear-cut that Democrats have as easy a road to winning the House as Republicans did in 2010 or as they had an increase in 2014. The reason being a lot of these districts have gotten both redder and bluer, meaning that the districts are more polarized, but Republicans are going to need to make some moves here. That means passing this tax reform plan now. That is on Mitch McConnell. You want to blame McConnell for something? That one's on Mitch McConnell. Pass some legislation. It's on President Trump to go out and stump for that tax reform package. It's time for President Trump to deliver on his guarantee with regard to the wall. It's time for Republicans to stand tall in the face of Democratic threats to shut down the government. Let the Democrats shut down funding for seniors because they want to make sure that there's no border security. Let's have that political battle. These are all political battles that can be fought and won. But they cannot be fought and won if there's a distraction every time. Now, President Trump can get away with being a distracting guy. He can get away with tweeting stuff about the NFL. But when it comes to other elections, people don't take crap the way they do in a presidential. In a presidential, the stakes are so high that people's threshold for taking crap from their own side is incredibly high, too. The same does not hold true of Senate elections or congressional elections. We need to recognize this reality if Republicans hope to retain any semblance of control in Washington, D.C. So, Alabama should be a wake-up call to a lot of people. By the way, it should also be a wake-up call for Democrats that they need a particular set of voters, particularly Obama voters, if they want to win. Charles Barkley made this point. Barkley was stumping for Doug Jones in Alabama. He's from Alabama. He's a Republican, but he was stumping against Roy Moore. Here is Charles Barkley talking about the terrible night for Roy Moore.
What's your message for President Trump tonight? As an Alabamian, as somebody who helped deliver the state to Doug Jones, what do you want President Trump to take away from this evening?
Well, this is a wake-up call for Democrats. Your Democrats, and I told Mr. Jones this, and I love Doug, they've taken the black vote and the poor vote for granted for a long time. It's time for them to get off their ass and start making life better for black folks and people who are poor. They've always had our votes, and they have abused our votes. And this is a wake-up call. We got it in a great position now, but this is a wake-up call for Democrats to do better for black people and poor white people.
Okay, so Charles Barkley letting the Democrats know that black votes are not always on the table for Democrats just because they want them to be. So there are some realities that are setting in for both sides if the sides are willing to look at them. I doubt that either side will. I think Democrats are going to continue to run radicals in races where they should be running moderates. And I think that Republicans are going to continue to run bad candidates just because anti-establishment and all the rest of this, because if people actually learned their lessons, maybe our politics would get better. Poll questions. Poll question number 1, how many people think that Roy Moore is innocent? And poll question number 2, how many people trust the media? I would suggest that exactly the same people who say they have no trust in the media think Roy Moore is innocent. Meaning that it's not really about Roy Moore being innocent, it's about distrust in the media, distrust of the narrative, the suggestion that Roy Moore is being unfairly targeted. And the problem is that any resistance to Moore by anyone is now going to be linked up by the same people who attribute this to the media. They're going to say that anyone who sides against Moore is now part of the media establishment, part of the media elite. So one of those people is Richard Shelby. Richard Shelby is the senior Republican in Alabama in the Senate, and he says that he did not vote for Roy Moore. He already voted. He voted right in.
Well, you're going to wake up on Wednesday, and one of these two men, Roy Moore or Doug Jones, is going to be your fellow senator from Alabama. Which one would you rather deal with on a professional level?
Well, I don't have to answer that question today. I had rather see another Republican in there, and I'm going to stay with that story. I'm not going to vote for the Democrat. I didn't vote for the Democrat or advocate for the Democrat, but I couldn't vote for Roy Moore. The state of Alabama deserves better. I think we've got a lot of great Republicans that could have won and carried the state beautifully and served in the Senate honorably.
And I think that there's a lot of truth to what Richard Shelby is saying here. The problem is, once again, people have bought into the narrative fight, and once they bought into the narrative fight, they're not going to snap out of it. So there are 2 polls out today on Alabama. Poll number 1 from Fox News says that Doug Jones is up 10 points in Alabama. Poll number 2, I believe it's a Marist poll, suggests that Doug Jones is down 9 points in Alabama. It's very difficult for the pollsters to actually gauge what exactly the election tomorrow is going to look like. It could really go either way. The reason for that is you can't model turnout in a special election. Number 2, this issue has really polarized the electorate, and it's not clear who exactly is going to show up to vote. And number three, the media attention on the race means that different people may show up to vote. So the pollsters are having a very difficult time figuring out exactly how this race is going to go. Bottom line is it could go either way at this point. It's not clear that Jones is going to win. It's not clear that Moore is going to lose. All of that said, it would not surprise me in the slightest if Moore were to win, especially given, again, that polarization that I'm talking about. The media, every attack by the media on Roy Moore is seen by Roy Moore supporters as a media attack, not as an element of truth. And that's exacerbated by the fact that Barack Obama now cut a robocall ad in favor of Doug Jones in Alabama. That is not smart. Barack Obama should have stayed out. This is a state that is two-thirds Republican. Attacking Roy Moore by Barack Obama is not going to be helpful. It may drive up Democrats.